Hello everyone, I am Orko Haldi, a second year Masters by Research student at ISC. In this video we are going to talk about diffusion models, what they are, how they work, and why are they important. So let's start with an initial image. What if we keep adding little bits of Gaussian noise to the image? The first step might look something like this, but after a lot of steps it will look just like white noise. But this is not so exciting. What if we could reverse the noising process and get back our original image? How is this even possible, right? But diffusion models are able to achieve exactly that. And by this, we can actually convert any noise into an image that resembles our training distribution. Now, diffusion models are currently the state of the art, particularly in image generation, and have surpassed other methods in generative modeling tasks. Some examples of these are nascent diffusion models outperforming GANs, as shown in this particular paper. GANs stands for Generative Adversarial Networks. Second is converting text description to images, and we have in-painting capabilities and manipulation and instructional generation. Let's discuss and learn about the basic mechanism behind diffusion models. Let's start from a sample image from the target data distribution, say from a training set, and let's call it X0. Let's define a forward diffusion process that gradually adds noise to this image over capital T time steps, and let's call it the forward process. Our model will be tasked to starting with X capital T and undoing this noise by what we call as the reverse process. The forward process, which we will call Q, denotes a Markov chain, where the distribution of a particular time step only depends on the sample from the immediately previous step. So we can write the distribution of the corrupted or noised samples given the initial sample X0 as the product of successive single-step conditionals. In the case of continuous data, each transition is parameterized by a diagonal Gaussian. Beta t here is the variance at a particular time step t. Typically, these variances are treated as hyperparameters and follow a fixed schedule for a particular training run. Beta generally increases with time and is bounded between 0 and 1. And it also means that this coefficient right here, root 1 minus beta t, will also be non-zero and less than 1, bringing the mean of each of the Gaussians closer to the origin as t increases. In the limit as t approaches infinity, we can check that Q will approach Gaussian centered at 0 with identity covariance, losing all information from the original sample. In practice, this capital T is of the order of thousands. Using a large but finite number of steps allows us to set the individual variances beta t to be very small, while still approximately maintaining the same limiting distribution. But why do we want a small step size? What's the benefit? That essentially means that learning to undo the step of the forward process won't be too difficult. Let's take a 1D example to try and understand this. Suppose you were given the distribution of a forward process sample at time t-1 that resembled a mixture of Gaussians with two modes. We then observe xt and want to infer the posterior distribution over xt-1. That is, we would like to determine where did the chain likely come from in order to arrive at xt. What was the previous step of the chain? If the forward noise step, that is qxt given xt-1, is allowed to be large, then we will be quite uncertain about the location of xt-1. Who knows where we jumped from? But if the forward noise step is restricted to be small, there is much less ambiguity about xt-1, as can be seen in the figure. We could then be justified in modeling the posterior of the forward step, that is q xt-1 given xt, with a unimodal Gaussian, eliminating the contribution from the mode to the right. In fact, it can be shown theoretically that in the limit of infinitesimal step sizes, the true reverse process will have the same functional form as the forward process. Diffusion models leverage this observation. parameterizing each learned reverse step to also be a unimodal diagonal Gaussian. Aside from the sample at time t, the model also takes t as input to account for the forward process variance schedule, as we can see here. Different time steps are associated with different noise levels, and the model can learn to undo these individually. Like the forward process, the reverse process is also set up like a Markov chain, and we can write out the joint probability of the sequence of samples as a product of conditionals and marginal probability of x big T. But what is P of x big T here exactly? We had defined Q of x big T, right? Any guesses? Is the same as Qx big T, that is the standard normal distribution. So at inference time, to actually generate a sample, we start from a Gaussian and begin sampling from the learned individual steps of the reverse process P xt minus 1 given xt until we produce an x0. And this is how inference is done after learning the reverse process. Let's get some intuition about this from the data manifold perspective. And what is a data manifold? Usually your data is very high dimensional, but the data itself lies in a low dimensional subspace, which we call as the data manifold. Now, for illustration purposes, we have drawn it as so. And in this process of diffusion models, we have designed a forward process that pushes the data sample off the data manifold, turning it into white noise. And while doing so, we have also trained the reverse process to produce a trajectory back to the data manifold by predicting the means of the conditionals, resulting in a reasonable sample from the intended target data distribution. Since this is a short video, we won't be going over the derivation and rationale behind the objective function of our model, but we will discuss some simplifications that lead to better results and also an easier objective function. So let's come to implementation. So how do we implement this reverse step? In the paper Denoising Diffusion Probabilistic Models, the authors set the reverse variances to time-specific constants. As they found, learning them led to unstable training and lower quality samples. So the reverse step network is solely tasked with estimating the means. They then suggest a reparameterization that aims to have the network predict the noise that was added in the forward process rather than the Gaussian mean. Right, so we can rewrite the arbitrary forward step by using this auxiliary noise variable epsilon, and it has standard normal distribution independent of the forward time step t. The reverse step model can be simply designed to predict this epsilon, which we call as epsilon theta, and the objective function turns out to be so, which is simply just a mean squared error. So where and why should we use diffusion models? So the key problem that it solves is the well-known problem of sampling from an observed distribution or generative modeling. We can imagine having a set of samples that which could be images, videos, text, speech, etc. And we want to generate more samples that resemble the samples of the dataset. And in these situations, you would be using diffusion models. So far, there have been many solutions to this problem. For example, variational autoencoders, VAEs, in short, normalizing flows, generative adversarial networks, GANs for short. But all of these solutions have certain disadvantages, as highlighted here. Diffusion models are quite easy to train, relatively easy to train, and deliver state-of-the-art quality on many problems dealing with generative modeling. And the training is more stable than GANs and also provide diverse samples as opposed to GANs that suffer from mode collapse. However, they are quite expensive in terms of training and inference, and this is an active area of research, and there are some seminal works in that area as well. So pause this video to look for some further topics of interest related to application or different formulations of diffusion models. And these are some references for the content of this video. Thank you.